The morning sun filtered softly through the tall windows of the Sussex residence, casting a warm glow over the quiet living room. Meghan sat on the edge of the velvet sofa, a letter trembling slightly in her hand. The ink, bold and official, spoke of intentions that seemed calculated to unsettle rather than inform. It outlined potential restrictions on Archie and Lilibet, framed under the guise of guardianship considerations, but the subtext was clear. The royal family intended to exert influence, perhaps even control, over their children. Harry stood nearby, tense, fingers brushing against the carved wooden railing of the staircase. His jaw tightened, a subtle reflection of the storm brewing within. Around them, the house remained serene, an ironic contrast to the chaos of emotion both parents felt. Archie and Lilibet, playing quietly on the rug, were blissfully unaware of the delicate, precarious web their parents were beginning to navigate. Their laughter, light and unguarded, felt like a shield, a reminder of what was truly at stake. Before we begin today's royal update, I want to take a quick moment. Many of you watch these videos but haven't subscribed yet, and you don't want to miss the latest developments and fascinating stories from the world of royalty. Subscribing is completely free and keeps you updated as everything unfolds. While you're here, tell us, where are you watching from? Share it in the comments. It's amazing to see viewers joining us from all around the world. Within the palace walls, whispers carried with the weight of authority and expectation. Camilla, discreet but determined, convened private conversations with trusted advisors. There was a careful choreography to these encounters, no overt threats, only the subtle pressure of influence and insinuation. Every phrase was measured, every glance calculated. For years, these quiet maneuvers had gone unnoticed by the public, but their consequences were now reaching the very heart of Harry and Meghan's family life. The couple had always known the palace wielded its power in ways that could bend outcomes without ever raising suspicion. Now, the target was their children. The implications pressed down like a heavy fog, threatening to obscure the clarity of parental love and judgment. Harry, a man who had spent his life reconciling duty with instinct, felt the familiar tug of protectiveness, sharpened by the knowledge that this was no ordinary family disagreement. The stakes were far higher. These were not decisions about protocol or ceremonial obligations. These were decisions that would shape the very lives of Archie and Lilibet. Meghan, steady but fiery in her resolve, knew that compromise could mean conceding not just influence, but the emotional safety and stability of their children. Together, they faced a choice between silence, which could be interpreted as acquiescence, and confrontation, which promised scrutiny, conflict, and public spectacle. Their first discussion about the letter was quiet but intense. Words were measured, voices low yet laden with meaning. "We cannot let them dictate this," Meghan said, her hand gripping Harry, as though to anchor them both against the rising tide of anxiety. Harry's response was deliberate, a mirror of his internal struggle. "We protect them. No one else defines who our children are or what they can become." In that moment, the room seemed to shrink, the quiet punctuated by the unspoken weight of responsibility and the shadows cast by a world that expected their obedience while their hearts demanded resistance. Outside, the world continued, indifferent to the private turmoil unfolding within those walls. Newspapers, social media, and television reports churned endlessly with speculation about the royal family, yet none captured the intimate urgency of Harry and Meghan's situation. The couple had long understood that public perception was both a weapon and a shield. Any misstep could become a headline, any statement misinterpreted, a weapon. And yet the private sphere, their home, their children, their decisions, remained theirs alone, sacred and inviolable. The tension between these spheres, the public narrative and private reality, was now coming to a head with unprecedented intensity. As the day unfolded, Harry and Meghan began to outline a plan. Every word, every movement reflected their combined resolve. They consulted legal counsel discreetly, drafted strategies, and considered every potential scenario, aware that each decision carried consequences far beyond their immediate understanding. The children's routines were preserved, meals remained comforting, bedtime stories continued uninterrupted, yet the undercurrent of vigilance was palpable. It was as though the air itself carried the weight of impending confrontation. Flashbacks surfaced, moments of joy and laughter, Holidays spent away from scrutiny, the first steps of Archie, the first giggles of Lilibet. These memories anchored them, providing clarity amid the emotional tempest. By evening, the tension had crystallized into a tangible determination. The couple sat together on the terrace, watching the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Silence stretched between them, but it was not emptiness, it was shared understanding. They would face the coming storm together, for their children, for their family, and for the principles they could not abandon. The palace, with its centuries of tradition and whispered power plays, could attempt to dictate the future, but it could not dictate their hearts. The first move had been made, the stakes laid bare, and the path forward, though uncertain and perilous, was now theirs to navigate. The following morning, the calm of the Sussex estate was shattered by the first hints of an approaching storm. Journalists had begun circling, subtly at first, testing the waters with innocuous questions and speculative commentary. Yet Harry and Meghan, accustomed to scrutiny, moved with practiced caution. Every interaction, every statement was carefully weighed, every public appearance measured. Behind the closed doors of the house, the couple held urgent discussions with their legal team, strategizing responses, planning contingencies, and anticipating maneuvers from the palace that could strike without warning. The documents that had arrived days earlier were now examined with meticulous care, clauses dissected, interpretations debated, precedents reviewed. What was written in ink, they knew, could be twisted into a weapon if the palace's advisors so chose. As news of the potential guardianship dispute leaked, social media erupted. Headlines exploded across platforms: royal children in custody battle, Sussex family faces palace pressure. Every word, every insinuation felt like a stone thrown into a still pond, rippling outward with consequences both immediate and unpredictable. Meghan scrolled silently through posts, her face illuminated by the glow of the screen, eyes narrowing with resolve. Harry, standing nearby, ran a hand through his hair, listening to the faint hum of notifications that seemed to amplify the tension within the house. They both understood that public perception would shape the context of the legal battles to come. The narrative outside could become as dangerous as any legal strategy inside. The first formal notice from the palace's legal team arrived that afternoon, delivered with precision and an almost surgical coldness. It outlined intentions, invoked historical precedent, and hinted at the perceived fragility of Harry and Meghan's parental judgment, all couched in language designed to appear reasonable. The words were carefully chosen, but their subtext was unmistakable: control, influence, and power. Meghan's hands tightened around the letter, Harry's jaw clenched. They exchanged a glance that spoke volumes. This was not a simple disagreement. It was a battle that would test their resolve, their unity, and their capacity to defend their children against forces they had never fully understood until now. Consultations with lawyers stretched long into the evening. Every argument was scrutinized, every precedent analyzed, every potential public reaction anticipated. The couple debated strategies, weighing the risks of public disclosure against the necessity of safeguarding their children. The emotional stakes were high, but the legal stakes were equally formidable. The tension in the room was palpable. Silence often fell between discussions, filled only by the faint ticking of a clock marking time that seemed to move both too slowly and too rapidly at once. Every detail mattered, every omission could be weaponized, every hesitation could be interpreted as weakness. Outside, the media frenzy intensified. Reporters stationed near the estate captured glimpses of movement through windows, interpreted innocent gestures as evidence, and circulated unverified claims with alarming speed. The palace issued statements cloaked in neutrality, yet the insinuations were unmistakable. Questions about parental capability, about influence, about the supposed need for guidance. The world watched, the audience divided, opinions hardened, and Harry and Meghan felt the weight of a global gaze that was both intrusive and relentless. Every step they took, every word they spoke, was dissected, analyzed, and often distorted. Through it all, Archie and Lilibet remained at the heart of the storm, oblivious to the growing tension, but entirely dependent on their parents' vigilance. Meals, playtime, bedtime routines, each became acts of protection, deliberate efforts to preserve normalcy amid chaos. The couple found themselves oscillating between strategic planning and quiet moments of respite, where the children's laughter reminded them why the struggle was necessary, why every risk had to be measured against the imperative to safeguard innocence and love. Night fell, and the Sussex estate seemed to hold its breath. The glow of the lamps inside contrasted sharply with the darkening sky outside, mirroring the duality of their situation, light and warmth contained within walls, shadow and scrutiny pressing relentlessly from beyond. Plans were drafted, contingencies prepared, but the uncertainty remained. The first salvo had been fired, and the battle lines were drawn. There would be no easy resolutions, no moments of complete reprieve. The legal storm and public firestorm were intertwined, creating a pressure that tested every instinct, every decision, and every bond. The following week brought with it a weight unlike any Harry and Meghan had ever known. Legal documents, each stamped with authority and precise language, arrived like echoes of a distant thunderstorm, silent at first, yet carrying the inevitability of impact. The guardianship issue, once a vague threat whispered in corridors of power, had transformed into a tangible, pressing reality. Lawyers convened in hurried meetings, their voices low but urgent, debating the merits of claims, interpreting centuries-old precedents, and weighing the emotional cost alongside the legal strategy. Every clause, every nuance mattered. What could be framed as concern in one paragraph might be weaponized in the next, a subtle threat cloaked in procedural decorum. Harry spent hours in the library, surrounded by thick tomes of family law and historical rulings, tracing the footsteps of ancestors who had faced similarly delicate disputes. Each reference, each precedent offered insight and warning. Meghan, meanwhile, orchestrated the team's communication with the outside world, carefully controlling leaks, drafting statements, and countering misinterpretations. Their unity became both armor and strategy, a living testament to their shared purpose. Yet beneath the calculated moves, the strain of anticipation pressed heavily, unrelenting. They were acutely aware that even a single misstep could be magnified, twisted, and turned into fodder for public judgment. Outside, the media frenzy intensified with every passing hour. The palace's statements, subtle in tone yet unmistakable in their intent, suggested that the matter of guardianship was a delicate concern, framed in language of duty, tradition, and best interests. Headlines erupted: royal children at center of legal dispute, Sussex parents challenge palace authority, custody tensions rise. Every news cycle amplified the pressure, and Harry and Meghan felt the sharp edge of public expectation, judgment, and curiosity. Social media discussions became battlegrounds, a global audience dissecting every move, every expression, every gesture. In this climate, even ordinary family moments were scrutinized, reshaped into narratives beyond their control. Amid the formalities, the emotional toll grew undeniable. The couple found themselves negotiating a complex landscape where affection, protection, and authority intersected with legal obligations. Archie, sensing the adults' tension, clung closer at times, his laughter subdued, replaced by a quiet vigilance unusual for his age. Lilibet, smaller but equally perceptive, mirrored the subtle unease, seeking reassurance in the familiar gestures of her parents. Harry and Meghan realized that the battle was not merely about legal jurisdiction. It was about safeguarding childhood, about creating a buffer against forces that sought to impose narratives and control decisions that were profoundly personal. The courtroom sessions, scheduled with meticulous precision, brought tension to a new pitch. Barristers presented arguments with impeccable formality, each statement weighed, each tone measured. Outside, the public eye strained against the courthouse walls, journalists whispering in corners, cameras trained like silent sentinels. Every motion, every objection, every procedural nuance became a proxy for larger battles, a reflection of family dynamics projected onto the stage of public scrutiny. Harry and Meghan, sitting together in the back, felt the weight of centuries of expectation pressing down, yet their hands remained entwined, a subtle rebellion against the coldness of protocol. Private moments between sessions were raw and unguarded. In the quiet of their temporary residence, they spoke freely, voices trembling with fatigue and worry. Each day brought a new revelation, a new argument from the opposing side, a new media misinterpretation. Yet they reminded themselves of why they had fought this far: the children, their innocence, and the principle that love and judgment should not be dictated by tradition or power alone. Emotional exhaustion mingled with resolve, creating a tension that was almost tangible, a storm confined within walls, yet threatening to spill outward at any moment. By the end of the week, preliminary rulings offered partial victories and subtle defeats. Legal documents indicated concessions won in principle, yet highlighted areas requiring ongoing negotiation. Each victory carried with it a shadow of compromise, each concession a reminder of the stakes. The couple emerged from sessions with weary faces but steadfast hearts, understanding that the battle was far from over. Outside, the press interpreted every expression as triumph or defeat, every pause as hesitation, every word as revelation. Yet inside, beyond the cameras, the legal wrangling, and the palace's shadow, Harry and Meghan held fast to what mattered most: their children, their unity, and the unwavering commitment to navigate this storm together. The weeks that followed were a delicate choreography of compromise, negotiation, and vigilance. Court sessions continued with meticulous attention, but gradually, the relentless tension began to give way to a more measured rhythm. Each argument presented, each clause debated, brought clarity and incremental progress. The storm of uncertainty did not vanish entirely, but its edges softened, revealing glimpses of a future shaped not solely by tradition or authority, but by intention, care, and mutual respect. Harry and Meghan moved with a sense of purpose that was quieter now, tempered by experience, yet unshaken in conviction. Inside the residence, life began to reclaim its natural cadence. Archie's laughter returned with a renewed vibrancy, the kind that had momentarily been muted by the undercurrent of tension. Lilibet, still precocious and perceptive, navigated her days with curiosity and wonder, her questions no longer tinged with unease, but with the simple innocence of childhood. The couple allowed themselves small, private moments of relief, reading stories aloud, playful mischief in the gardens, quiet dinners, where the conversation was unburdened by strategy or scrutiny. These moments, seemingly ordinary, became extraordinary acts of resistance, proof that family could flourish even amid scrutiny and challenge. The palace, recognizing the couple's steadfastness and the legitimacy of their concerns, began to engage in dialogue that carried a new tone, less formal, more reconciliatory. Legal teams exchanged documents with precision, but also with growing acknowledgement of shared priorities. The media, sensing the shift, tempered some of the more speculative narratives, reporting on proceedings with factual restraint rather than sensationalism. Still, Harry and Meghan remained vigilant. Years of public scrutiny had taught them that appearances could deceive and that true resolution required careful, deliberate attention. As the final legal sessions approached, the atmosphere was charged with anticipation, yet beneath it lay an undercurrent of resolve and quiet confidence. Arguments were presented, objections raised, and motions heard with procedural exactitude, but the tension was no longer suffocating. It had transformed into purpose. In chambers, the judge acknowledged the delicate nature of the matter, the complexity of the family dynamics, and the paramount importance of the children's welfare. Each word was measured, every decision carefully articulated, balancing law, precedent, and compassion. For Harry and Meghan, this acknowledgement, though formal, carried profound weight, a recognition of their commitment, their resilience, and the legitimacy of their voice in shaping the lives of their children. When the final ruling arrived, it was not framed as an absolute victory nor a defeat, but as a carefully constructed compromise that safeguarded the children while acknowledging the parents' central role in their upbringing. Legal documents formalized shared responsibilities, clarified boundaries, and enshrined the principle that the children's well-being would be paramount in every decision. It was a resolution forged through persistence, insight, and unyielding dedication, a product of both strategy and emotional intelligence. In the quiet of their home, Harry and Meghan read the final documents together, a sense of relief washing over them like the first warm light after a long winter. That evening, the family gathered in the gardens, the air filled with the laughter of children, the fragrance of blossoms, and a palpable sense of peace. Archie ran ahead, his energy boundless, while Lilibet paused to inspect a flower, her curiosity unabated by the previous weeks of tension. Harry and Meghan watched, hands entwined, hearts aligned. In that moment, the weight of public scrutiny, the pressure of tradition, and the stress of legal wrangling seemed distant, almost unreal. What remained was the enduring truth they had fought to protect: love, family, and the safety of childhood above all else. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that danced across the lawn, the couple shared a quiet acknowledgement of the journey they had endured. Each challenge, each confrontation, each sleepless night had led to this moment of clarity, of balance, of affirmation. They had navigated storms that tested every facet of their resolve, yet emerged with unity intact, strengthened by experience and fortified by love. The children, blissfully unaware of the full magnitude of the battles that had been fought on their behalf, embodied the victory itself, the triumph of family, resilience, and hope. In the gentle twilight, Harry and Meghan stood together, watching their children play, and felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The struggle had been arduous, the scrutiny intense, but the outcome reflected what they had always known. Courage, patience, and unwavering dedication could create a sanctuary of love, even amid the weight of history and expectation. In this quiet triumph, the family discovered not just resolution, but a renewed sense of possibility, proof that even in the most complex and public of lives, the bonds of family, nurtured with care and protected with determination, could endure and flourish. And so the chapter closed, not with fanfare, but with the soft, enduring light of love, resilience, and the promise of the future.